Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, bottom line, when we all come to this, everybody involved, when it comes to the issue of criminal aliens, the public safety is paramount for past victims as well as potential future victims. We agree on that?
Yes, sir.
With these criminals under the custody of ICE, are there convicted sex criminals?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many?
I think that number is available, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, if you could provide that, I would appreciate it. But to that specific...
In 15, sir?
From my understanding, in 15, there were almost 1,000 sex criminals released.
That may be right.
Okay. Let me go on from there. Of these sex offenders who are released back into society, does your agency notify law enforcement?
We do, and this is something I think I testified about the last time I was here. I'm very proud of the fact that we have stood up the law enforcement notification system, whereby when we are releasing actually more than just sexual offenders but other criminals into a state that we believe they have indicated and they're going to a specific state, we notify them that they're on
Notify who?
The state database. Usually it's the state office, and for example, in my state of Texas, in Austin,
because you promised last time you were here that by the end of 2015 that the states law enforcement would be notified. I spoke with the sheriff of Gwinnett County this week, which is the second largest county in America next to Harris County, Texas, where criminal aliens are being released, and he says he does not hear from you.
I did exactly as I promised. We did get the notification system up and running by the end of last year to the states. What we're working now is phase 2.
So let's just cut to the quick of this. So you're saying that when an illegal alien, sex offender, or any other is released into a community, you are assuring me that law enforcement is notified?
The state law enforcement, yes. The state that's responsible for all the local jurisdictions within.
But not the specific counties?
No, we have 254 counties in the state of Texas. It would be very difficult to do that, but we are trying.
But isn't that where the rubber hits the road?
Absolutely, and that's why we're in phase 2, Congressman. We're in phase 2, which is we're going to be communicating with the specific local jurisdiction.
All right, what about victim notification? Are they notified when a criminal is released? Say you have someone who is raped, the rapist is released in their community, is that victim notified?
We have a criminal notification system, just like the Department of Justice does with respect to the penal system, and people sign up for that, and we do issue notices.
So let's suppose a rapist is released, they do not register, as we know many of them do not do, on the sex offender registry. How does a previous victim know that that predator is released?
They sign up. I think Mr. Root did this also with respect to his situation. He wanted to be advised about the proceedings with respect to that particular illegal immigrant. But they sign up for the victim notification system, and that's how we give them that information.
And all of them sign up?
I can't say that all of them sign up.
Well, I guess really my question has to do with the predators themselves, who are released. I've actually introduced a bill, and I think that it closes this loophole, H.R. 2793. It's called TRACK. It would require ICE to register these sex offenders on the national registry when they are released. Right now, that is required of every citizen of the United States who commits a sex crime. They are put on the National Sex Offender Registry. That is not the case with illegal aliens who commit sex crimes. And I don't understand that for one reason. It seems very commonsensical to me that if an illegal individual in this country commits a sex crime, they need to be put on the National Sex Offender Registry when they are released. Would you have a problem with that, with supporting that bill?
Well, I understand that's what happens with respect to any person.
It does not happen with respect to illegals. Well, that's the point.
And my concern is We expect the person to...
Do you really expect a person to put themselves on a national sex offender registry? It doesn't happen.
Well, that's what you all have provided for with respect to sex
Would you have a problem with ICE being required to make sure that they are put on the National Sex Offender Registry?
I certainly like to look at that and study it, sir. Yes.
I would like, Mr. Chairman, to encourage all our colleagues to get on board with H.R. 2793. This is a common sense approach to close an enormous loophole by requiring these people to be put on the National Sex Offender Registry.
2793,
2793.
Thank you, sir.
I thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes for questions. Ms. Saldana, I'm going to come to you because throughout this testimony this morning, you've made a point to pat the large book in terms of the law that you need help with. You've said it's somebody else's fault. You continue to focus on everyone else that has a stake in this, and yet some of the blame actually rests directly with you. And so that's where I want to go with this, because you've been equivocating, in my opinion, with some of the questions that have been answered. And you know, I think specifically the ones that I had issue with when you were talking with Mr. Grothman, when you talked about the fact, do you know the entire universe of those who have committed crimes that get detained? Do you know who they are? Yes or no?
Who are in the country illegally?
No, who get arrested by local law enforcement. Do you get notified of all of those under the new system, which would be the Priorities Enforcement Program?
We have the ability to check the system.
Do you know, yes or no, all of the people that are there? Do they ping DHS and you know it?
Not necessarily.
Okay, and is that a change?
Is what a change?
Is that where they don't ping DHS anymore? Is that a change in the way that you have been notified over the last 18 months?
It's a database.
Yes or no? I know the answer, so yes or no, is it a change?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, let me be a little bit. Under the Secured Communities Act, they were required to actually come and ping you and let you know that they had someone who had committed a crime, and it actually let you know that. Is that not correct?
I don't know that specific.
You're the head of the agency. How would you not know that?
That program has never been.
I'm a congressman, and I don't even know, and I've had to read up on it. So
that program has never been in effect since I've been director.
Okay, so the PEP
PEP
program, let's look at it. You're saying that they're all participating. What would you classify as participating by someone under the PEP program?
I didn't say they're all participating. All the jurisdictions, 3,000 plus in the country, are participating. I wouldn't have said that because that's not correct.
Well, you've said that, okay, well, what?
We've made progress.
Oh, say, made progress. So if someone has committed a violent act under the PEP program, are they required to let you know that they have them incarcerated? Yes or no?
No.
All right. So we could have an illegal alien that has had a violent crime, and local law enforcement does not have to let ICE know.
Doesn't have to, but many jurisdictions.
I know many do, but they don't have to let you know. Do you not see a problem with that?
That's why I'm working so hard to change the minds and hearts.
Well, but you're not working hard. So let me go on a little bit further. Why would ICE be arresting and detaining 40% less people than they did in a previous year?
Apprehensions. Apprehension numbers are down.
So are you saying, so is it your testimony here today that there's less people that are actually committing the crimes?
Well, I didn't get to finish my answer.
No, I'm all ears.
Okay.
Because I want to understand how all of a sudden there has been this 40% reduction in crimes by illegal aliens according to your stats. Because you're not 40% less on detainers, 40% less on administrative removals. How all of a sudden did that happen this year?
What happened, sir?
40% less detainers, 40% less removals.
Well, I'll tell you, we have fewer people in the system. I mean, that's going to be a...
By design, because you've changed the system to make sure there are fewer people in the system. And that's the frustration of the parents, is what happens is you have made the universe lower so you can report less people that you let out of jail free. Do you not see a problem?
That's not correct.
Listen, if you want to go over the numbers privately after this hearing, I'll be glad to go over the numbers. I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah.
So you tell me how it could be 40% less.
As I started, part of it is the apprehensions, the number of people in the system. We are going about our apprehensions, all our decisions, on a very informed
No, not informed, because you have to know the whole universe of the people in order for it to be informed. So how many drug dealers, how many rapists, how many kidnappers do you let get out of jail free card?
None that have a final order removal, and we're able
No, you're equivocating again. The
I'm
final
not equivocating.
over...
There's not simplistic answers.
Okay, out of the 7,000 plus that you had the discretion to let go, were any of those violent? That you had total discretion over letting go? I'm saying there weren't traffic offenses. Out of those discretion, were any of those violent?
Yes, there were some that have been convicted of violent crime.
So don't blame it on everybody else. So that
I'm
was
not blaming it on everybody else.
So violent criminals, at your discretion, have been let go.
Yes, some by order
Do you
of the
not
court.
see a problem with that?
Sir, it's all based on the statute.
Don't go there, because I can
How
go
can I leave the
further.
statute out?
It is prosecutory discretion, and that's your discretion, ma'am, and that is my problem.
And I can't.
And I'm out
ignore
of
the
time.
statute.
I'm out of time. But are you willing to take me up and go through all these numbers after the hearing? Because I'm perfectly willing.
Always,
and then we'll go
always
public with them, right?
Happy to meet with you.
All right. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Farenthold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple of lines of questions, but I want to start with this discretion stuff that everybody is talking about. Congress has given you guys the discretion to not deport people. I could give my children discretion to spend their allowance as they see fit. I would probably have to come back and revisit that if I thought they were being stupid about how they were exercising that discretion. And to me, it seems like you're exercising your discretion in a way that's coming up with tragic results. Listen, I think I can all understand you've got a violent criminal who's hospitalized and isn't expected to live 6 months. Of course you use the discretion there. It's not worth the money, or it's probably not even possible to safely transport that person to their country of origin. But, that's the far extreme. I think you're too far towards, well, we're just going to let them go. And I think that's the criticism that you're hearing from the members of Congress here. Even though we've given you the ability to do something, doesn't mean you should do it. And I just wanted to clear that up, because I think in all the back and forth here, that hasn't entirely been made clear. I think the whole point of this hearing is there are a good many members on this panel who have you up here because we think that discretion isn't being exercised wisely.
I got that impression.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear on that. I want to talk a minute about the Priority Enforcement Program. I meet and hear quite a bit from my local sheriffs in Texas. And as a Texan, everybody loves the sheriffs and they all have an opinion. And what I hear from them is that they are having problems in getting you guys to determine what about detainers. And sometimes they'll arrest somebody and it'll be 3, 4, 5 days before they hear back from you guys as to whether or not to issue a detainer. And by that time, the person is already bonded out. So how can we improve that process to where they get, let's say, pick a number, 24-hour response there?
Okay. I don't have to tell you that there are 254 counties in the state of Texas, and it is wide and long.
But everybody's got a computer. I mean,
oh, yeah. But the problem is getting to the specific local jurisdiction within a timely manner. you know, so we try to get people there as quickly as possible.
Right, but what they want is a determination of whether or not to keep them. Most of the sheriffs I know, they'll drive them to you. They'll be happy to deliver them.
Congressman, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Would you give me the names of those
I will.
sheriffs? No, I am not only half kidding. I would like to know any sheriff that is having any difficulty in hearing back from ICE. I want to know that.
Yeah, we'll get you that information. We've actually worked with some of your local people and have seen that improve some.
And I've got to say, the great state of Texas does a very good job of cooperating.
Well, we're spending an awful lot of money doing the job that the federal government could do. We could do a whole other hearing on whether or not and how much Texas should be reimbursed for doing the federal government's job. But I also want to talk about the 287G program. And what the sheriffs have found is that if they have the revenue to pay for somebody, in a lot of these small counties, you know, you look at Brooks County, small county, very little property value, they don't have the ability to pay for a person y'all will give them the training for free, but they've got to pay the salary for the person. But what has been found effective in that program, in addition, is you get a jailer in that program where they can actually access the computer and information database directly, and then they're able to determine. So I would encourage you to work on growing that program. I'm working with the appropriations to make sure y'all have the money to continue to make that work. My final question is, I'm going to get back to discretion for a second. And you don't make the decision for everybody there. I mean, it's delegated down the line. How do you ensure that it's consistent, and how do you ensure that the person who has that discretion isn't of a disposition to say, oh, let's just let them all go?
No, sir. They all know my background, and they know that would be fully unacceptable. What we do is we train. We issue directives and policies, make things clear, give guidance. We revisit. I have myself, at least once, maybe twice, gotten on the phone with each one of the 24 field office directors with responsibility across the country to say my expectations and to make sure that people have the message of how we go about our business with respect to detention and those decisions and the exercise of prosecutorial discretion in general. So, but it is a challenge when you have 6,000 officers out there who are involved in this. We just need to stay on top of it. I've got my field leadership coming in next week. We're going to go through this item by item and talk about the general subject of, is the word getting down all the way? So that's what I do. It's a constant vigilance.
Well, I have plenty more to talk about. My time has expired.
Thank the gentleman. We'll now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Sedana, for being here. Ms. Sedana, last year, it's my understanding that you released 19,723 illegal aliens with criminal records. 19,723. That's the number I've been given. 19,723.
That number is correct by, remember, court order or some discretion.
And these are illegal aliens with criminal records such as kidnapping, sexual assault, DUI, and homicide.
That's correct.
You say that somewhat matter-of-factly as if it's okay.
Well, it's not okay, but that's what the statute tells me, sir. It tells me we need to that we need to abide.
You know, it's just unbelievable to me that we have released 19,723 illegal aliens with criminal records such as kidnapping, sexual assault, DUI, and homicide. It's appalling. No wonder America's in an uproar right now.
It is appalling.
It is appalling.
Speaking to the Supreme Court of Texas, the United States, with respect to some of it, the immigration courts have another.
So tell me when you can detain them. What's a priority one? Explain to me what a priority one is, very succinctly, very quickly.
At threats generally to national security and
so kidnapping, sexual assault, DUI, and homicide are not priority one?
Yes, they are in that priority if they're convicted.
If they're convicted?
Yes.
Now, you got me confused here. We established the fact that you have released 19,723 illegal aliens with criminal records, including those with kidnapping, sexual assault, DUI, and homicide, and you're telling me you shouldn't have released them?
No, I'm telling you, you just asked about priority one. There's another priority they might be included in. And let me just remind you,
There's another priority, so there's more than just priority one?
priorities.
There are two priorities. And the second priority includes kidnapping, sexual assault, DUI, and homicide.
Well, the first could also. The first could because it is persons convicted of crimes. We don't, in the United States, we don't assume somebody is going to be convicted until they've actually been tried. I'm just saying a simple matter of fact. I think that's fairly obvious.
So you just go ahead and release them?
And I should remind you that you all determined...
So you, please answer my questions. So you'd go ahead and release them?
If we've been ordered by a court, or if we've exercised a discretion in looking at the entire case,
so
we may make that
are you
decision.
releasing them instead of deporting them?
Because of all the strictures in this statute, sir. I am not going to go outside the law in what I do. I cannot deport somebody without a final order of removal who's had the entire framework, been allowed to follow the entire framework you have provided, including appeals and consideration by the courts with respect to their claims of asylum or torture or whatever it is.
So you're just releasing them right here in America, not deporting them at all. They're staying here, and then we've had numerous examples of where they've gone and committed these crimes again? Don't you find that to be somewhat appalling?
That's horrible. I wish we were. I wish there were no crime committed by anyone.
Well, let me ask you something else. Let me ask you, and since fiscal year 2012, the annual budget has increased more than $680 million. Is that correct? That's the figures I've been given. Since 2012, your budget has increased more than $680 million.
ISIS, yes.
But at the same time, the number of aliens removed has decreased by 174,000. 174,000. Can you tell me what the reason for that is?
Because we can only remove those people that have final order of removal and the appropriate travel done.
Well, if we cut your budget, would you stop releasing them? Because we're giving you money and you're releasing them.
Sir, you know, you're misrepresenting the facts when you say you release them.
I'm not misrepresenting the fact that we have increased your budget over $680 million and you have decreased the number of people that you've deported by 174,000.
Let's make it clear that these releases, only 7,000 plus, have been entirely discretionary. But it's not willy-nilly. It's made on the case-by-case analysis of the record that we have in front of us and on flight risk analysis.
Let me ask you this. DHS leadership took $113 million that Congress appropriated to ICE detention and reprogrammed it for use by Secret Service and FEMA. Why was that? Are you familiar with that?
That is a secretarial level decision.
Oh, a secretarial level decision.
Well, it's the Department of Homeland Security, sir.
Okay. Okay. So that you wouldn't have been involved in that and you wouldn't have known about that?
In the decision?
Or even in the process?
Am I informed about it? I'm informed about the process, but the decision is a secretary.
So we're giving you money, and here we are releasing less than 174,000. You know, I'm just appalled by this. This does not make any sense at all what we're doing. No wonder America's upset. But they should be upset.
The gentleman.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but and I appreciate this, but Ms. Noya, we got to do something. This is ridiculous, ludicrous.
Gentleman's time.
I yield,
expired.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now I recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Saldana, critics have argued that one factor encouraging illegal immigrants to enter the U.S. is the belief that once they enter the country, they will not be removed. I think that's been pretty well established here. Secretary Jay Johnson recently stated that the 11 million illegal immigrants in this country are not going away, and that are in effect, and I find this absolutely astonishing, United States citizens. Does that include those who have criminal records? And say yes or no. I'm just asking, is that a yes or no?
And just, if you won't mind repeating me, what was your question specifically?
Jay Johnson stated that there are 11 million illegal immigrants in the country who are not going away. They are in effect United States citizens. Does that include those who are here who have criminal records That's a yes or no.
I don't think he said they're United States citizens, sir.
He said, in effect, United States citizens. But that's not my, we're not debating what he said. I'm asking you to believe that, that includes those who are here with criminal records. Are they?
They are not
United
States citizens.
No, are they staying?
We're doing our best to remove them.
Well, I don't know about that, because let me tell you what just happened in Alabama just earlier this month. Authorities in Oxford, Alabama, which is not in my district, arrested 3 men. 2 were from Honduras and 1 from Mexico. One of the men, Camilo Antonio Espinoza Medrano, had been ordered removed from the United States in absentia by an immigration judge on or about January 7, 2014. According to the affidavit, it appears Medrano failed to voluntarily deport himself. Another guy, one of the other guys, Enrique Benitez of Mexico, an immigration history check confirmed Benitez was illegally present in the United States. His criminal history check showed that he has prior convictions for possession of cocaine in 2011 and evading arrest in 2008 in the District Court of Dallas County, Texas. Now, let me tell you why they were here. They were working for a security group out of Honduras who is a front for a drug cartel. And they were here, and here's what the affidavit says. Supposedly, they were here through a deal arranged through a security company owned by the friends of boss, who Benitez, another one of the guys, knew as an enforcer and debt collector for drug organizations. Benitez, they were going into a private residence to steal a safe and kidnap the occupants. And Benitez further stated that he and the other individuals traveled to Oxford, Alabama, and provided firearms, bulletproof vests, camouflage clothing, and other gear to do the job. And the group was instructed to assault the residence and take its occupants captive. Now, here's the point. 2 of these men had criminal records. One goes back to 2008, but they're still here. Now, because of the excellent work of the Oxford Police Department, who stopped them on a traffic stop but realized that something wasn't right when they saw them in camouflage and had weapons. And by the way, one of the weapons was a Smith & Wesson pistol that was confirmed stolen by the Arlington, Texas Police Department. Can you imagine what would have happened if they'd carried out this and kidnapped those people? And let me tell you what Benitez said. He planned to use the handgun to shoot the occupants of the house if they presented a firearm during the home invasion. This is Alabama. I want to remind you, it's Alabama. Just about every house has a gun. And for good reason. I won't get into this administration's policy on gun control, but this, let me tell you. Can you imagine what would have happened if they'd shot that police officer? This is insane. You can't you let people in here, you do criminal background checks, they commit crimes. I've got a deal here where one guy raped a 10-year-old girl in Alabama. Here's another one. Sofan Eldon had 34 arrests over 12 years. He's a Palestinian. When he was arrested by the Hueytown Police Department, which is in my district, ICE told him they couldn't deport him because the U.S. doesn't recognize Palestine. Director Saldana, it's been reported that ICE recently proposed changing current policy to require that fingerprints be taken from all people claiming custody of children who have entered the United States illegally without an adult relative. Let me ask you this. Among the many policy suggestions that have been made, do you think this would be an effective policy to also implement for illegal immigrants who are repeat criminal offenders but are not considered priority 1 in accordance with current DHS policy?
I would consider that. We have not proposed that, but I would consider it.
Well, why haven't you?
Done what, sir? Propose that?
Why haven't you not proposed it? Why haven't you taken that action?
I'll tell you, sir, there's a lot of things I need to get to, and I'm pedaling as fast as I can. But we all have that under advisement right now, and we're looking at it.
Well, pedaling as fast as you can won't do much good for people who are at a funeral.
That's the best I can do.
Back.
And that's what's pathetic. Mr. Walker of North Carolina is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by recognizing two groups of people. The first one is Sarah Ann Root, age 21. Mr. Root, I'm proud of you for representing her today, and I'm also proud of your service to our country. Casey Chadwick. Ms. Hartling, as a former minister, I can only imagine what your family's gone through and losing this 25-year-old beautiful daughter here. And there's Marilyn Ferris. Chief Martin, thank you for coming all the way to represent her today. There's also another group of people that I want to talk about. Three people, again. Edward Mejia, Jean Jacquez, and Victor Ramirez. They also have something in common today, in the fact that all three of them were arrested on previous charges before they ultimately committed this heinous crime. Victor Ramirez was an illegal from Mexico. The chief did his part. Over a 15-month time, he arrested this gentleman 6 times. 6 times. Over 15 months. Yeah, this is the guy, along with his partner, that beat Mrs. Ferris' face in with a hammer. Somehow she fought back, survived 8 days. See, this is huge. And then we hear today from my colleagues that the way we justify this is that criminal aliens, according to one statistic, commits less crimes than the general public, of which you had a sweet chat with them about. Well, what if they weren't here to begin with? Would they have committed these crimes? It's not rhetorical. If they were never here, would they have committed these crimes?
No.
And then we talk about the challenge of returning these people to the country. And then I believe, if I want to make sure that you were on record saying this, as the Director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, did I hear you say correctly that sealing our borders or building a wall or even finishing the wall of 2006 from the former George Bush as president, you said that that would not help us prevent illegals from coming in our country? Did you say that?
I said, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've seen many videos where people scale those walls very easily. You know, that's just not the only answer. There's lots of things we have to do to secure the border.
Yeah. So it's easier not to have a wall at all instead of making somebody go and scale a wall, in your opinion. I don't understand that a bit. Here's the data. And let me start with a question here. Do you believe that the sexual assault, abuse, and exploitation are heinous crimes? We'd agree with that, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Okay. And a little earlier, my colleague, Mr. Carter, talked about charges. These 19,000 are not charges, they're convictions.
Yes.
Okay? And according to this, including 1,614 convictions of sexual offense. My wife's a sexual assault nurse examiner. She works in this world. She understands that she's reaching out to the people who are going to their very darkest point of life. 352 convictions involve commercial sex trade. My state's number 9 in the country. Yet for some reason, these are listed as priority 2 instead of priority 1. Why is that?
Sir, because the most serious offenses are listed in priority 1. The most serious offenses, terrorism, it's just a matter of directing resources in the place that will hurt the country the most.
So you're telling me that sexual offenses or the rape of a 6 or 7-year-old child is not as an important offense as some others?
I was a United States attorney. Do you know the answer to that question? Of course it's a serious offense.
But I'm just going with what you just told me, that you said, no, that's not. That's priority 2 because it's more concerned with other ones.
Sir, in your authorization, you have directed us to prioritize you direct that the Secretary of Homeland Security shall prioritize the identification and removal of aliens convicted of a crime by severity of that crime. And that is exactly what we've done. You may disagree with the 3 categories or the way they were placed, but you directed us to do that, and the Secretary did that.
Well, here's what I hope we agree on, is that we have a major problem, and we have illegal aliens in this country committing heinous crimes who are not being deported. I also want to add one more thing in closing here, in my 30 seconds that I have left. There was a statement made earlier that law enforcement needs to be concerned about the delicate task of not putting some of the national of origin into the definition of the criminal activity. Do you believe that law enforcement should stop being? I look at Chief Martin, who worked 30 years in gang-related activities, went to El Salvador and did some great work there. Do you believe that we should stop or drop the the race part of describing some of the crimes that are going on?
We have to look at whether someone's in the country who's not a citizen. So we have to look at the country of their origin.
Okay, I don't know whether that was a yes or no, but with that I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. The chair will recognize himself for 5 minutes. Ms. Saldana, you've got a little bit of attention at your outset when you encouraged us this morning in your opening statement to drop the political banter. And I think you pointed to the rules and regs and the statutes that are in front of you, and you invited us to help you develop a system that works. And I'd like to talk about that. In fact, you and I have talked about that in the past. So let's go back to something you and I have talked about before, which would it help you develop a system that worked if we figured out a way to require local law enforcement to cooperate with your retainer requests?
Well, we need to figure out a way to get law enforcement to work with us, just like this individual from law enforcement works with us. And I don't think he'd take kindly to us browbeating him and forcing him to do things.
Let's stay on topic. You know where I'm getting at, which is, would it help you develop a system that works if we required local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE?
Compulsory?
Yeah.
It would help me to some extent, but that's what I'm doing in PEP, is I am trying to get everybody
let's talk about
to the table.
To what extent? Because that's the third answer I've gotten now. Because I asked you the exact same question in June of 2015. I asked you, quote, would it help if we clarified the law to make it clear that it was mandatory that those local communities cooperate with your detainer requests, end quote. And you answered, thank you, amen, yes, end quote. The next day, however, you released a statement that read, in relevant part, a different answer, quote, any effort at federal legislation now to mandate state and local law enforcement's compliance with ICE detainers will, in our view, be a highly counterproductive step. Now, end quote. Today, you just gave me a third answer, which is, in a way, it would actually help. So let's talk about how requiring local law enforcement to cooperate with ICE would help you.
In enforcing the 4,000 laws that the Department of Justice had to enforce and I had to enforce as a United States Attorney, I found that the best way to work with state and locals is through cooperation and agreement and standing side by side.
Well, that's fair, but if I'm in a city that has said, you know what, we want to be a sanctuary city, we don't want to cooperate with ICE, my guess is the chance for cooperation is probably gone at that point. Wouldn't it help you do your job if we went to these so-called sanctuary cities and said, you know what, you can't do that. You have to cooperate with ICE when it comes to dealing with the sorts of people who kill their children.
I am working with all the cities, whether they want to.
How's that working in San Francisco?
We're making some inroads. I believe we've got,
Would it help you more if we required them to do it?
I don't think the local government would be more cooperative if you browbeat them over the head by saying the feds.
How about if we required them by law to do it or denied some type of federal money?
I think that they are, at least I've heard, sir, and read, that state and local governments don't want the federal government to tell them what to do.
Do you think that a state and local government should have the right to tell the federal government that they're not going to cooperate with an immigration issue?
No.
Okay, so they don't have a right to do it, but they're doing it anyway. And you don't want us to bring them into line. You don't want to require...
I am telling you the realities of the real world, and that is in trying to get people to work with us for the bottom line, and that is the public safety.
I hate to be melodramatic because it's not usually what I'm very good at. Turn around and tell the people behind you about the real world.
I have been, and I hope they've been hearing me.
Let me ask you this. Does the Sanctuary City program put your field personnel at more risk than they would be otherwise?
Having to go into a jurisdiction into somebody's home when we could have gotten them at a local sheriff's or police department, yes, it does put them at risk.
So you don't want us to take steps to lower the risk for your own people?
I'm saying give me an opportunity to get this done. PEP has only been in effect since last July. It's not even been a year. So give me some time to work with state and local jurisdictions. I have made tremendous headway. Of the top 25 jurisdictions that did not honor detainers, we've got 17 back at the table.
It's been a year since you were here last time. Let me ask you this. Does the Sanctuary City program put the public at risk?
I don't know what the Sanctuary City program is, sir.
Well, let's use the terminology we've been using for the last couple of minutes, which is the programs whereby cities say, you know what, we are not going to cooperate with ICE. ICE calls us and says, detain that person that you just picked up. And the city says, you know what, no, we don't want to do that. Does that put the public at more risk?
I want every jurisdiction to cooperate with ICE.
Good. We could help you with that. Would you like us to help you?
I need all the help I can get.
Okay.
And I will work with you to try to come up with a rational system by which we can improve that situation.
Which is the third answer you've given, so I thank you for that. And I'll yield back the balance of my time to the chair, and I will recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Duncan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, all over this country, people have read headlines and stories similar to the ones, some that I have here. And this one story has been mentioned a few times already today, but I was presiding over the House earlier, and I didn't get in on all of this, and I know there are some people watching now who probably didn't hear some of these things earlier, but the Washington Examiner had a headline that said, ICE releases 19,723 criminal aliens, 208 convicted of murder, 900 of sex crimes. And before that, there was a story from the Washington Times, which the headline said 3,700 illegal immigrant threat level 1 criminals were released into the U.S. by the Department of Homeland Security. And that story said most of the illegal immigrant criminals Homeland Security officials released from custody last year were discretionary, meaning the department could have kept them in detention, but chose instead to let them onto the streets. Some of those released were the worst of the worst. More than 3,700 threat level 1 criminals who are deemed the top priority for deportation were still released out into the community. That's why people are so upset. That's why people are so angry about all of this. And then earlier we had a testimony in this committee from Jessica Vaughn from the Center for Immigration Studies, and she testified that ICE officials have told her that since the administration's policies on prosecutorial discretion were expanded, they are processing a small fraction of the number of aliens that they used to process. One recently told me that his office used to process as many as 100 aliens per day, but since the President's executive actions went into effect, now they are processing closer to 5 aliens per day with the same staff and budget. And it seems to me that this is a shameful record, that the people at the top should be embarrassed about this. As Mr. Carter pointed out about how the funds have gone up so much, and yet the prosecutions have gone way down. And I doubt that there is another agency in the entire federal government that has gotten the percentage increases, Director Saldana, that your agency has, percentage-wise. I mean, we just keep pouring more and more and more money into your agency, and we're getting less and less and less for that money. And I can tell you that people all over this country are angry about that and upset about that. Are you embarrassed about this in any way? Are you ashamed, disappointed? Surely you're not happy about all this that we've talked about here this morning.
No, sir, and I will tell you, I think you may have missed when I spoke earlier about the fact that I would like not to see one person injured or one person certainly killed at the hands of someone who's in the country illegally. But when people say, Congressman, when people say that we have released 19,723 people, it fails to point out the fact that 2/3 of that were by court order or an instruction of the Supreme Court of the United States, and that is a misrepresentation of the picture. That's what I object to.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a terrible thing. I mean, I've got stories up here from the Texas Tribune, and they tell about one man who was passed through the Webb County Jail 4 times on more than a half dozen charges before allegedly beating his wife to death with a hammer. Another man spent 3 months in the Hidalgo County Jail for 4 months in state custody and 6 years in federal prison for multiple felony offenses. At the time, he went on a random shooting spree in Houston, killing 2 people and injuring 3 more. And then, of course, you have the famous case of this man in San Francisco who shot Kate Steinle to death after he had racked up a criminal record including 7 felonies, mostly drug-related. People are really angry about these sanctuary cities that the administration has gone along with. The American people are the kindest, most generous, most sympathetic people in this world. And we have allowed far more immigration, many, many millions more than any other country. And the American people have gone along with that. But they are sick and tired and angered about reading about all these criminals being released. And you or somebody's going to have to do a lot better job on this. I yield back.